Hey, we're here today talking to international casting superstar Maxine McCormick and her coach, Chris Korich. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good.
Great.
Excellent. Maxine, it's been 3 years since you and I talked, and I imagine it's been a very big and very busy 3 years for you. You are about to go off to compete again in the World Championship over in the UK here in just a few days. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Super cool. I imagine you've been working very hard on your training here lately. Can you give us an idea of what your training days look like? What's your program?
Usually I fly down to the Bay Area to train with Chris, and we'll go out to a field near the bay where we get a lot of wind to do our distance training, and then we'll do our accuracy at the ponds.
Now that's going to be a big difference for you, I imagine. In the UK, you are probably going to be facing some pretty serious wind during the competition. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to train for.
Yeah. Are you nervous about that?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's very different, I imagine, huh?
Yeah.
And I know last time, of course, your stellar event was the trout accuracy event. And I noticed that this time around you're competing in a lot more events, including spey casting events.
Yeah.
That's
Accuracy's still my main, but yeah, I'm trying distance too, more distance.
how do you like casting the two-hand rod?
I like it a lot. That's my favorite distance event, the salmon fly, the two-handed overhead. That's my favorite.
Cool. When we talked before, you were 11. You're 14 now, right?
Yeah.
I imagine you've changed a good bit physically too. You're probably a lot taller now. Am I right?
Yeah.
Certainly, in the photos I've seen, you look like a proper young lady instead of a little girl, which you were when you first won this competition. So, do you think that's going to give you an advantage coming in? Do you feel like that gives you a casting advantage over where you were before?
I feel like my height and my strength will definitely be an advantage. Yeah.
When you do the distance casting, what rods are you using?
They are like unique rods we made, or Chris made them, custom, and one of my salmon fly is a G. Loomis rod originally, yeah.
Nice. And are you still casting fiberglass for the accuracy competition?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you like the fiberglass for that?
You can feel it really well, and yeah, I don't know, it's nice.
What do you think is the secret to your success in accuracy casting?
A lot of hours of training for sure, and Chris has taught me to focus on one target at a time and not think about all the other ones, which is a really good way to think of it.
You think competing at the level that you are competing at, it's as much a mental game as a physical game, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, excellent. So, Chris, how has Maxine been as a student and as an athlete?
Well, of course, it's been an amazing transition from 9.5 years old and 62 pounds to 5'7" and a young athlete. She has fantastic hand-eye coordination and just great timing and everything. But more than anything, like every sport, you can have all the physical gifts and blessings, but you have to work on the fundamentals, and you have to pay your dues. You got to do the reps and put in your 10,000 hours per se.
It's tough to put in 10,000 hours when you're only 14.
Well, it feels like her coach has put in that much, including behind-the-scenes stuff. Since she was 9, it's been 5.5 years. But no, she's put in what she calls focus time. She can tell you about that. But Maxine has amazing, laser beam focus when she chooses to, and I really have met no one else like it except, for Steve Rage, of course, our teammate and, my lifetime friend and big brother. and I, we're not worried about the other people there. We're gunning for Steve, right? We want to beat our teammate, challenge Steve, right, Maxine?
Yeah.
Bragging rights.
It's got to be tough being Steve. Everybody's gunning for Steve. So tell us about your focus time, Maxine. How do you learn to control your focus when you're competing?
Like I said earlier, I like to narrow down on each target and just forget about everything around me and just zone in.
Do you find that easy to do, or is that a challenge?
Sometimes it's challenging, sometimes it's easy, I don't know.
Depends if she has her iPhone turned on, Lewis. Snapchat is going off like crazy, right? That's probably been the teenagers probably been the biggest challenge, right?
Are you big into social media, Maxine?
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Do you? What do you use it for?
Usually I just use Snapchat for talking to my friends. I don't really use Instagram that much, but...
You don't share your fishing locations on there, do you?
No.
Okay, we just want to be sure. I'm not personally following you on Snapchat, but if there's any good info to pick up on there, maybe I could. So, when we talked before, I know you talked about casting as a game and enjoying your time out there doing it. And it seems to me like maybe these days your mindset is a little more competitive. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, but I like to keep it fun still.
Yeah. But
yeah, it definitely is more competitive now.
You want to win when you go out there, right?
Yes.
Do you feel a big responsibility representing your country in an international competition?
Sometimes a little bit, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to... I don't want to let myself down when I'm out there, but that's usually what I think about.
Are you your hardest critic?
Or
is it Chris? Be honest.
Yeah, probably.
She's pretty hard on herself.
Yeah.
She does not like losing.
How is Chris as a coach?
He's a really good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best coach I've ever met.
Is it kind of like having two dads?
Yeah, he's like a family member to me.
Yeah, you guys have been working together for a long time, and I know that your family has relocated in the last few years. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So you're not as close to Chris as you used to be. Has that been a challenge in your training?
Yeah, for sure. We don't get to train as much, but I do fly down here sometimes, and he flies up there.
Do you have to take more responsibility to put in practice time on your own?
Yeah. I don't go out that much back in Portland, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
About how many hours a week do you think you spend practicing?
I don't really know.
You're not keeping a diary?
It's pretty intense. We have to, every other week we're trying to make up for the in-between week. But of course she's doing things for physical fitness, and you tell them about your track and other sports you do, Maxine.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that. You're running track?
I did in the spring.
What events do you compete in?
800, 1500, and 400.
Oh, wow. So you're a good runner.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that that overall physical fitness is important to your casting?
Yeah, it definitely helps, I feel like, for distance.
Oh, for distance. Do you think it makes a difference in the accuracy as well, or just for distance?
Well, it probably helps a little in the accuracy, too. But mainly.
Yeah. And in the two-handed rods, you're casting 15 and 16-foot rods, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of rod to handle.
Yeah.
How far are you bombing your spay cast now?
165-ish, yeah.
Wow. Holy smoke. That is awesome.
Come train with us a little bit, Lewis.
I should, yeah. I should come out and get embarrassed. So are you going to take some time while you're over in Europe to do some fun stuff, to do some sightseeing?
Yeah, we're going to London for a few days before.
Great. Have you been to London before?
No, I'm really excited.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful city. I think you'll really enjoy it. That's cool. Well, we are all certainly pulling for you in the competition, and hope that you do really well over there. I know that competing in these things, it costs the team a lot of money. It costs you a lot of money, and I understand that you're doing some fundraising to try to raise some money to support the team. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, well, we're going to include a link for that for the listeners so that they can hopefully get in there and help support the USA team. You guys go back and bring some medals back for us. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, you know, Lewis, on that competitive note, this World Championships of Fly Casting that's taking place, you know, in the Atlantic Ocean in the Cumbria region, northern region of London, or north of London, North England, northwest England. It's going to be the most competitive participated World Championships that I know of. Steve and I were talking about it. Steve Raja, of course, you know, we were talking the other day or last week at the national championships here in the country, and neither of us remember having 123 competitors from over 20 countries. I mean, this is really turning into a big event, and I think it's two reasons that the World Championships of Fly Casting are growing so much. Unquestionably, what Maxine accomplished in Estonia 2 years ago, you know, at the age of 12, becoming the youngest world champion in history. I mean, it just fired people up. People at the banquet, I think, were celebrating her victory, and of course their own, you know, as much as we were. The party went on through the night until the sun came up. You know, I had to put Maxine and her dad on a cab to the airport to get home for school. But it really motivated. You know, the biggest thing I've seen is to have, you know, a young person again here in the United States. It's so motivational for other members of our casting club and for the angling community. And, you know, people are following Maxine's achievements all over the world, you know, in Europe and Japan and Australia. And so it's just super motivational. And I think, you know, a lot of people just, you know, what excuse do they have when a 12-year-old girl goes and beats every woman and every man at the World Championships, right?
Yep.
So it's just motivated so many anglers locally and club members to improve their casting and to learn about the secrets, you know, of tackle and getting everything balanced and making your fishing more pleasurable. And I think the other thing, of course, you know, the ego side of it is if you're going to be on the ocean with 20-mile-an-hour winds, everybody wants the farthest cast they've ever made. Not going to be so good for accuracy, obviously, but, you know, we're going to be ready. And but I think, you know, people want to take advantage of the chance to cast with huge winds at their back and see how far they can cast these single-handed and double-handed events. So I think it's both things, but there's no question there's a level of excitement and motivation, you know, amongst the fishing community and casting to have such a young person that's achieved, you know, what Steve and I never achieved, you know, until we were much older, 16 and 17 respectively, you know. So it's a great thing, I think, for fly fishing in North America and throughout the world.
Yeah, I think so too. And do you think it's a continuing trend that competitive fly casting is becoming more and more popular? More people are getting turned on to it?
Yeah, I think, you know, in over 100-year history, and we just had the 110th National Championships, you know, in Indiana. And, of course, we cast the fly games and the plug games. Maxine's main focus, of course, is fly fishing and fly casting. But, you know, in the old days, you had to go to an angling or casting club to learn how to use bait casting reels and, you know, how to figure out a knot backlash and things like that. And
yeah, I still can't do that.
Reels, a lot of which evolved from the sport of casting. You know, there's all the magnetic weights and computer chips and reels and things like that. So, you know, more and more people, even though they're not that good and they really don't know the secrets, they think they can just buy any old spinning reel at, you know, the local store, and they can and go fishing. But learning to fly cast is still the real challenge, and especially with all the different types of tackle, you know, from freshwater to saltwater, and now, of course, with the two-handed spay. So I think that more and more people, you know, the trend is people really want to improve their fly casting, and a lot of people, you know, since the river runs through it, you know, they can go nymph fish all day out of a boat, but if you ask, you know, fishing guides around the world, you know, what's their biggest complaint? They're going to say people can't cast. And so I think casting at targets and working on your fundamentals and learning about equipment,
So let's talk about fishing for a minute. Maxine, I understand that that you competed in a little bass tournament the other day.
Oh, last summer you had that bass camp or that fishing camp you went to where you had a bass derby or something at the end.
Oh, yeah.
How'd you do? How did you do?
Oh. I did good. I caught, I think, 50 bass.
57, I think. There,
57 bass in one session.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, she told me, she called it. It was like a Babe Ruth thing, you know. It was 100 degrees, and there were some fires last summer in southern Oregon where she was fishing, and trout fishing wasn't very good, and she was kind of bummed, but they went to do the bass fishing, and the first day I think she landed 16 or 17 or something, and she said, they're going to do a derby, and I'm going to catch 50. I figured it out, and I can use my casting, and I'm going to catch 50, and she came back and beat the local kid, you know, caught 57. So.
That's awesome. Do you like bass fishing?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I think it's fun too. And a lot of fly anglers, I think, ignore it, but they're a really cool fish and fun to catch.
Yeah.
What was your secret?
Just casting at pretty much where I saw fish.
So you were sight fishing to them.
Yeah.
Have you done any saltwater fishing?
No, I really want to, though.
Yeah, I think that your casting skills would really be an asset for you when you get into saltwater.
Absolutely.
I look forward to seeing you do that. What's your favorite species to fish for?
I don't really know. I've caught trout and then the bass and bluegill. That's pretty, and yeah.
Do you tie your own flies?
For rainbows the most?
Yeah, I do like dry fly fishing.
You do like dry flies. Do you tie your own flies?
Not really, no.
You probably have plenty of people willing to give you flies, huh?
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Well, I can't wait to see how you do in the competition, Maxine. We're really pulling for you. And thank you both for taking the time to talk with us today and to give us a little insight into your preparation. I know that all the listeners are going to be hoping for great things for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.
Great talking with you.
You guys have a great trip.
All right.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There you go, 14-year-old Maxine McCormick and Coach Chris Corrich headed off for the World Casting Competitions in the UK on the 17th of this month. Check out the site. We'll leave a link, and you can follow and find out how Maxine does in the competition. Thanks for listening.